Next question.
My question was, in a previous debate that was between Commissioner Jones and Mayor Zanotti, it came out with a question about the might be a violation of Ohio State Constitution. Where does both issues, as it relates to where you want to appoint these committees and all these committees, do you look at a point that you're going to be zealously looking and see if you are in compliance with the Ohio State Constitution, or where the issue may be in violation of Ohio State's Constitution?
I'll grant 1 minute each. Mr. Johnson, you may begin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what the specific constitutional issue is, but clearly, the charter. You have some flexibility in developing a charter, provided that it doesn't conflict with state law, including the Ohio Constitution. So. Certainly we would expect that to be part of the process, so that when we develop those provisions that there wouldn't be any conflict with any state law.
I think that, I'm glad you brought that up. I believe it speaks to the credibility of the creation of Issue 5. In my mind, it was Peter Lawson Jones himself who raised this issue, and I believe it's misdirected. The Ohio Constitution is very clear. A charter commission will frame a charter for the county or frame amendments to an existing charter. There is no reason for this to go to court. There is no reason for this to be complicated by lawsuits or disputes. It's very, very clear, and I believe it was part of the confusing and disinforming campaign of these commissioners to make it seem as if, oh, there are all kinds of legal conflicts and problems if both issues pass. It's simply not true.
Thank you. Next question.
I have a question for primarily for Ron Johnson, but both of you can answer it. And that is, you made the statement that you said that this charter is a bad deal. You didn't go into any details on that, but I have a question, and that is, with the 3 county commissioners we have right now, they hold both executive and legislative power. And then you said that with this new charter, the county executive has more power, but he really doesn't, because he's got the executive part, and then we have the council for the legislative part. And if you're dealing with the county commissioners, that's the big problem with the corruption in my mind, is that they've got total, complete power right now.
Yeah, power is in the eye of the beholder, and yes, on paper, the county executive has administrative power, and the council has legislative power. But if you actually read the provisions of the charter proposal, and you read the powers and duties of those offices, you will recognize that the council can make law, the executive can veto it. That can only be overcome by a supermajority of council. You will recognize that the CE, the executive, can investigate, broad investigative powers, anything and everything countywide, whereas the county council has limited investigative powers. You will see that the county executive controls the audit function. Controls all financial transactions and controls the audit function without checks and balances. And so it's important to be able to make those distinctions and make those discernments to determine where is the real power. And then if you look at the makeup of the council districts themselves, I think if you study those, you might take some issue on how those districts were comprised.
Mr. Kelly, anything to add?
I think the question made the point very effectively that the new charter provides for a division of power for the first time, and direct representation to county government for the first time. For the first time in 200 years, you will have direct representation to your own county government. You should have had it all along. And it just reminds me that Issue 5 was placed on the ballot to confuse and misdirect people, and I think it's a shame. But because it is there, I think we have to deal with it, and the way to deal with it is to get the good candidates on this charter commission.
Thank you. Question in the back.
Yes. First of all, to both candidates, how familiar are either of you with restructured county government problems, especially in Erie, which is Buffalo, and Allegheny, which is Pittsburgh? Those 2 counties went through restructuring to the proposed form of government they're talking about in Issue 6. And secondly, Mr. Kelly, if elected to the commission, will you support the outcomes based upon your participation on that committee?
So the first question first, Mr. Kelly, the Erie-Allegheny question.
That one's easy. No, I'm not familiar at all with what's going on in Erie, and I don't like Pittsburgh very much, so I don't pay any attention.
Hey, I grew up there.
I'm sorry.
Careful.
And the second question, would I validate the outcomes of the Charter Commission? If I were part of the Charter Commission, of course I would.
And similarly, I'm not familiar with the government restructuring in those particular cities, so I'm not sure what lessons could be learned from those processes. And as far as validating, I do echo Mr. Kelly's comment that certainly from a part of the commission, I'll certainly do that.
Any other part of his question, Mr. Kelly?
Nothing that I know of.
Okay.
Mr. Kelly, you quoted a study about loss of income to Cuyahoga County if the charter proposal doesn't pass. Can you comment on the expenses that this charter will incur? If you compare this charter similar to King County in Washington State, they have 9. It's same size county as Cuyahoga County. They have 9 elected officials for various districts and some at large, but they're just their staff, just the staff for the elected council members. They have 168 staff members. The executive has 28. That's just for their staff. Can you comment with, as far as issue 6 goes with the charter, how that would play in when there are no limits to who will be on staff compared to Summit County where they have 5 people?
I will comment on that. The Plain Dealer did a brief study that showed that there would be immediate savings under the new structure of county government if you include all the salaries for the county council, the salary for the new county executive, compared to the salaries and expenses of the current commissioners and their staffs and their other expenses which are associated. But there's another way to address that, and that's just as citizens. And I like to think we're all here just as good citizens. And it's not hard to figure, even for those of us who are not politically adept, and I'm not, that if we have a good county government structure and good people in there, and we clear the decks and get a good new crop of people running our county government, we are going to save a fortune. And I believe that, and I bet most people do.
Mr. Johnson, I'll give you the full minute to answer if you would like.
Yeah, one thing I'll say about some of these studies, first of all, I have experience in this as well as other members of our slate in retooling operations. And you can't look at just salaries for savings because there are other costs that are incurred in operations. And I can tell you, we're talking about replacing elected positions with appointed positions. And you can just look around. You can look around in your own communities. You can look around Cuyahoga County. People who are in appointed positions tend to earn higher salaries. There are additional staffing requirements that are necessary to run operations. And so it's unfair. Whoever drafted the charter proposal should have done an analysis to determine what the real costs are. The Plain Dealer, in my opinion, is not equipped to do an appropriate analysis. So I don't think that there's going to be real cost savings because it's not apparent and it's not clear how that can be done, and that's based upon my experience.
Thank you. Final question from the audience?
Mr. Johnson, I'm a member of the Citizens Reform Slate, and I first wanted just to state that we are not the insurance policy for issue 6.
Is there a question coming?
There is a question. So I just wanted to make that clear that if issue 6 does fail, we would work to craft a charter that would work best for the people of the county. Mm-hmm. My question to you is, what portions of issue 6 do you agree with?